All right, ladies and germs, what we're going to talk about is another tech tip. We're going to talk about Holley Snipers, Aces EFI, and Phytex. These are what you call throttle body EFI systems. They all have their little differences and they all have their little problems. Number one, Sniper, their quality control on the first generation versions weren't the best. There's a bunch of tech tips out there that actually help you make them a little bit more bulletproof, but sometimes they just come bad off the shelf, or sometimes you just have bad luck. Whatever it is, they all have their things. Phytex, they have, some guys have failed ECUs, some guys have failed other parts of the throttle bodies. They all have their things. And then Aces is a brand new company. Don't know much about them. They're brand new. So I can only trust them as far as I can read about them. So, which isn't much. All right. So we're going to kind of talk through this. A lot of you old school guys will see a crap ton of wires over here. And just get very discombobulated and confused. We're going to break this down very Barney style and make it very simplistic. It's going to be pretty easy. I'm not asking everybody to turbocharge their car or go as crazy as I did. And hell, if you don't want to do a throttle body EFI and you want something that's going to be reliable and old school, go to the Ford 6 forum and read up how to do a 2-valve conversion and what carburetors are on there. The Ford 6 is going to have it all documented. It's been there for 30 plus years. And it's going to have all the information you need. You simply just use a search feature at the top, type in what you're looking for, bam, found it. They also have stuff for like blow through carburetors, draw through carburetors. I don't have the time in my day to answer all those questions that are already documented in a forum that's very well kept and very well managed. So if you have any questions about that kind of stuff, go to Ford6.com and use this, create you an account and use that search feature. And it's going to be great. There's a lot of good stuff to read on there instead of trying to be spoon-fed of every single torque spec there is that's out there. You can also buy the Falcon manual, which is going to be obviously for Mustangs as well because they were pretty much the same exact chassis. All right. Let's go back into this. So the main one we're going to be using today, I don't have a Phytex and I don't have an Aces to kind of like explain the differences between the both of them, but they're all going to pretty much be working the same exact way. You're going to follow their instruction manual that comes with the kit. These were designed by engineers. Yes, they are built in China. Their QC process through Holley for all their products isn't the best, but an engineer actually designed this thing. So we're going to break through the wires. Holley claims that it only takes 5 wires to set this up. That's pretty true. All right. One of the biggest things that bites a lot of people in the ass is simply battery power, battery ground, battery negative, not ground and not power. Yes, I do have my battery located in the trunk of the car. I run 2 big old wires to the front right here to 2 distribution blocks. One distribution block obviously jumps straight to ground, and that jumps around. And I also have another one. I ground the hell out of my cars because you want to make sure you have a good ground. The other one's a power distribution block. So anything that needs constant power goes directly to that. So I'm not pulling so much work. You see a lot of people's starter solenoids, it usually sits up here on the factory position. Most people's starter solenoids, they have a crap ton of wires going to it. It looks so stupid. Do your wiring where it doesn't look like a gypsy did it, all right? Plan it out. Draw it out. If it doesn't look right or doesn't look clean, you can trace your runs. Don't start your car with the wiring flopping around in the engine because once it's like, all right, it's working. Now let me wire it in. You're going to screw it up. If it's running, it was already too late. What I'm saying by that is this unit, all the little throttle body units are designed to be wired in, bolted on, started, and it will run. So guys, plan your wiring out. Do your first and final wiring when you install the EFI. The reason why I say that is because if you lay it in there and have everything kind of jumpered off and then go to redo it and you don't disconnect the negative of the car, you're going to jump that bastard to ground, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to fry the unit. So then when you go to start the car after you do your final wiring, you fry the ECU. All right? Or whatever else may happen. All right? So we'll talk a little bit more wiring habits here in a little bit. But directly to power on the battery, directly to negative on the battery. All right? And if you're, like I told you, remote is okay, but it has to still go directly to the battery. The next one, fuel pump power. Obviously, the other side of the fuel pump goes to the ground of the car. Doesn't have to go to the batteries negative. It just goes to the ground of the car. All right. I prefer intake pumps versus external pumps. External pumps are very loud and they don't last as long. Internal pumps are quiet. They last a lot longer. And also the ones you get from Holley are also internally regulated. So you only really need to run one line all the way to your throttle body, which is kind of nice. All right, and then there's also other options. You get the Aeromotive tank, like I have. Or there's also the Tanks Inc., which are nicer pumps, nicer tanks. If you do need a brand new fuel tank, buy once, cry once, like me and a few other guys say. The next thing on your wiring harness that you're going to see is a fuse for your fuel pump, a relay for your fuel pump, and then the fourth wire that you'll need is when you turn the key on. This wants to see when you turn the key on. This needs to be on when the key's on, and also on while starting the car. So the best place for that is the back of the ignition switch. You could take it to the starter solenoid. I think the I side of the starter solenoid will do that as well. Run it to the back of the ignition switch, all right? Or if you, we'll get into it a little bit later, how to do a proper power wire setup. The next wire you'll need is one of the two. If you're gonna run a simple distributor setup, this just goes straight to the negative side of the coil. So this is gonna send a negative pulse to the sniper, to tell the sniper what RPM the engine is at. The next one is if you're gonna be running a Duraspark or HEI distributor, this purple wire goes to the ignition output. It says on the HEI, it says IGN out. And on the Duraspark, it's the same exact color, purple. So it makes it pretty easy. If you're running a Hyperspark, you unplug this wire, and then you plug in your Hyperspark, and it's going to be the same exact twisted pair like this, same exact plug. Holley did good with making stuff match up. And then with the Hyperspark, well, we're not going to get into that. So, distributor, coil negative, one of those two. So that's your fifth wire. That's all you need to get the Hyperspark, the sniper running. Now, the one thing they always leave out is putting in an oxygen, doing the oxygen sensor. It is a part of the harness, and this oxygen sensor has to be mounted. I like mounting it before the collector. And what I mean by the collector, it's the part where the header bolts up to the rest of your exhaust. The reason I say before the collector, because if the exhaust gasket leaks, you have a bigger problem with this being after it than you do with it being before the collector. Right? So, that's all you need to get the car running and tuning itself. Now, self-tuning, it's a sales gimmick, all right? Yes, the car will start up and run, you can drive around, but it'll be pig rich. It will learn, but it will take a very long time to learn because the initial programming you have on these things is very, 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 very generic. So, there's a lot of guys out there that can do remote bass tunes for you, get a nice bass tune on it, and then it'll learn. It'll actually learn pretty good. It'll adjust for as the engine's getting tired, or if it's just extremely cold outside, or if it's extremely hot, and it just adjusts up and down for that. It's really nice. That's something a carburetor can't do. You really have to play with the carburetor at that point, especially when I lived out in Colorado, driving a carbureted truck was, it was a bear. You had to play with it all the time because the DA or the altitude would change as the weather would change. So it was kind of a bear. All right, anyways, aside from that. Now, say, for example, you want to do the whole entire Holley ecosystem, right? So you don't want to run the Duraspark or HEI distributor, and you don't want to be very basic with you can't run a Load-O-Matic on these things either. A Load-O-Matic will not work. It has to be Duraspark or HEI. Now, if you're going to run the Holley ecosystem, what I mean by that is you're going to run the Hyperspark box, a Hyperspark distributor, and the Hyperspark, the coil. All this is a Ford TFI coil. All this is a MSD 6AL, and all this you can also use a locked out Duraspark here. That's actually documented on the page as well, on the Facebook page. Now, when you want to hook the Hyperspark up, all you need is the same couple of wires. You just unplug this guy like I was getting ready to say before, plug this directly into your Hyperspark. This wire right here plugs in directly into your Hyperspark distributor. Can't confuse it. Then, in the instructions, it'll also come in the box as well. It tells you white points out wire. All you simply got to do is, just like Painless and American Auto Wire, they label the wire all the way down, and this says points out. You really can't see it because this is not a very good print. This is like a first generation wiring harness. Actually, yeah, I think it is first generation. So the points out, this goes to the CD box. And how this works is the distributor, your HyperSpark distributor or your DurSpark, sends a signal into here. Signal goes to the computer of the sniper. The sniper sends that signal out to the points output wire. All these harnesses, as you can see, come straight out of here. This is just separated for how I had it laid in an old car. This white wire goes into your HyperSpark. So it comes around, goes into your HyperSpark. The HyperSpark tells the coil when to fire, and the coil fires on the exact cylinder and the timing that it's demanding. Pretty slick. So you'll have timing control and fuel injection, which makes it a very, very comfortable ride. Now, when it comes to self-tuning, does the Sniper self-tune ignition? No, it can't do that. It's literally impossible for a ECU of this era, for right now, for a timing to be self-tuned. You have to have somebody do that. I do say there are some good remote tuners out there. You pay them you do have to pay them money to do this if you don't know how to do it yourself. There's also a guy named Joe Simpson who has a whole entire EFI tuning course that I got taught about this a couple months back. You can learn how to tune yourself. Whatever you want to do. These engines, these little inline-sixes, are very forgiving in what you do to it. Too much timing will blow it up. Not enough timing will blow it up. So put that in your pocket and think about it. Now, all these extra wires on here I'm not even talking about, you'll probably never use unless you do turbocharger, or you're like me and you have a bunch of other systems like electric fans. You can turn your fans on and off with them. Fuel pressure sensor, oil pressure sensor, like you could do all that. So the little only the Holley Super Sniper 2300 and the other Super Snipers have the extra inputs on this wire right here that you can actually use. I'm not sure if the regular Sniper actually came with all these extra. No, I don't think it comes with a whole entire extra wiring harness. It does not. So all these extra wires are simply your outputs and inputs. The same thing goes for this extra harness right here, outputs and inputs. You got tach, you got fuel pressure, oil pressure, blah, 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 all that other stuff. It's all in your instruction manual, and you can read about it if you want to. I'm not going to explain an entire wiring harness, but really, really easy once you get into it. To do HyperSpark, you're running 6 wires, and you need probably about a lot more dollars in parts these days now, because Holley went up in price pretty significantly. All right, so a couple of ways to bulletproof a Holley Sniper is. First thing is open it up, zip tie. This is now I don't know on the second generation snipers or the QC process that they have now, but on the older ones you had to open it up and zip tie the injectors clips down. For some reason they designed it where it actually snapped on and locked in. So that's the one thing. So the Sniper 2300 comes with 4 injectors. The Super Sniper 2300 comes with 4 injectors. The regular Sniper 2300 comes with 2. All right. The idle air control usually doesn't really fail very often, but to be safe, you can get a Delphi version of this. They're available at every single parts store. I just swapped mine out with Delphi because these are just simple Chinese sensors and that are not good. But yeah, Delphi, idle air control, Delphi, throttle position sensor, and that's it. The ECUs in here, you'll never have to look at it. You'll never have to see it or anything with it. You'll never have to touch it. We're not even going to talk about it. All right. Now, it comes to Holley and their retarded design of the fuel pressure regulator right here. This is a big piece of junk. Don't ever trust it. If you're going to use it, take all the little guts in here out, and then you can run, fuel through it. The way I did this was I deadheaded to the Sniper. So what that means is I ran a fuel line to my fuel pressure regulator, and then the line fed out of here, and once it pressurized the sniper, it would bleed off the rest and return it back to the tank. For every forced injection application, you have to have a return style fuel system. Returnless is fine for naturally aspirated stuff. Return style for everything forced induction. That's turbochargers and superchargers. And you know what? Even nitrous cars, because nitrous cars are considered kind of forced induction as well. Now, let's talk about wiring habits. Now, when it comes to wiring, some people trust plastic connectors, that they're aircraft grade and that they're made in the best places in the world. I treat plastic as plastic. It doesn't matter who makes it or where it's from. I always keep it from chafing. I support it with little brackets like these, or you can make your own little brackets. Whatever it may have you, but if this thing is within an inch of the engine, any connector is within an inch of an engine, any small connector, you can't do anything about these big guys. You just have to lump them out the way. But the little guys like this, you want to take a good set of wire loom and protect it. So this is from a company. This is from a company called DEI. I use this around all my little small connectors, and anything gets close to the engine. I don't use the stuff that came with the Sniper. This stuff is plastic, and the wires I think would actually chafe on this as well. This is really cheap. This is going to go to John. This is actually his Sniper too. This is going to be another little tip I'm going to give you here in a second. So wrap this around your connector to protect it, because this will keep heat away from it and keep it in case it moves around in the engine bay or something like that. The reason why you want to do that is because plastic melts, guys. It just melts. It's not going to last. These little big connectors are pretty thick. You're not going to melt them. Obviously, support them up and away from the exhaust manifold and away from the engine. Don't have them just laying in the valley of the intake like a lot of guys do. You can see my intake. I don't have anything laying in it. Everything's nice and supported. And this is a nice little trick. So for this fuel line right here, I send a zip tie up and through, and zip tie it through, and it becomes its own little bracket, so it doesn't look super cheesy. A little trick right there. I mean, I don't like zip ties as being a bracket, but that's a good way of doing things. Now, the other thing that you actually use zip ties for is capturing wire looms to make them taut, not tight. Don't make them like super, where you don't have any kind of like give to it. You don't want it being sloppy and hanging, but you also don't want it being too tight. Just make it nice and clean. I mean, Holley gives you a good example of what a wiring harness should look like when you're done with it, right? So, I mean, you don't have to do all the heat shrink tubing and all the other fancy extra stuff right there, but it would be nice if you did. Just spend your time building your harness. Do it once and do it right. Don't do a bunch of times like we were talking about before. So, next thing is, for my application, I had to run my coolant temperature sensor, which is this wire right here, runs really close past my wastegate tube and goes pretty much almost lays on my header. So DEI has been the company I've been using for decades. That's the company name right there, Design Engineering Inc. They make good wire loom. Not like the painless or American Auto Wire plastic stuff. This stuff is actually heat rated. You can actually light it with a torch, like this kind of torch right here, and it will not catch on fire. It will, melt down a little bit, but it won't catch on fire. But if you take some gold tape like this, all this is a simple tape, but for some reason, this gold tape just works really well reflecting heat. What I do with that wire down there is I wrap the gold tape around it, just taped off the wire, put some tubing around it, and then I actually gold taped around both the tubing and the wire. It makes it pretty bulletproof. I actually checked it out the other day, or last weekend or whatever it was, when I was redoing something over here. I can't remember what I was doing. And I pulled the tape off and the wire still looks brand new. And, not a big deal. Oh, you know what I forgot about wiring? You have to actually put your coolant temperature sensor in there. So on the early model log manifold heads, the coolant temperature sensor, there's two different sizes to it. Danny found a guy from, I think, Mad something Motorsports. I can't remember. Maybe he'll comment down here, down below or something like that. But they make a smaller coolant temperature sensor. Mine is just, I don't use heat. I'm in North Texas. Mine just threads right into the heater pipe. But this also used to thread into my 1980 big large log manifold head. But the older heads need the smaller sensor. You could do it in the thermostat housing as well. This is where the factory, this is a vintage inline's thermostat housing. I was doing this. I just decided to block it off with the factory coolant temperature sensor. But I would never say put it in a thermostat housing. The reason why is because you have to wait for the car to actually heat up for that sensor to actually see how hot the motor actually is. So what that may inhibit is getting a good tune on the cold startup enrichment stuff. So that's just me being anal about stuff like that. I have mine threaded directly into the heater core pipe. Now, most of you guys live in colder environments or what may have you, and you'll need your heater core. At that point, this head doesn't actually have a spot where you can put that sensor in the backside, like, because your coolant temperature sensor is normally back behind number 6 cylinder. This head doesn't have it. This is an Argentinian 221 head, as you guys have seen in the videos before. So, I forgot that one. You do need your coolant temperature sensor. This comes with the kit as well. It comes with that size sensor. It's kind of sucks. So, proper wiring habits. When you bolt this guy in there, do your wiring the first time. Make sure it's clean. Keep it out the way. Don't put a bunch of stuff jumping off of your freaking starter solenoid. Read the instructions. Study before install. Really plan out how you're going to do stuff. You could do it. You could lay the wiring harness in there and just trace and kind of play with it how you want to do it. And maybe if you're cooler than me, you can tuck it a lot better than I can. And what I mean by tucking is so you don't see the wiring in there. It looks like a carburetor. Hopefully this helps, guys. Hopefully that explains and stops scaring you guys so much away from EFI. Problem is, these things do fail, but usually if they're going to fail in the first year unless you're doing something wrong. At that point, you got to question yourself and look mechanically at what your car is doing wrong. All right? Love you. Talk to you later.